Picture this. You're camping deep in the Aussie bush. The fire's dying down, when suddenly the trees start shaking and a low growl echoes through the night. Or imagine driving a quiet back road when something slams the side of your car hard enough to rattle your bones. These aren't campfire yarns. They're real stories from ordinary Australians who swear they've met something out there. They call it the Yowie, a massive, hairy creature said to stalk the forests and mountains. Some reckon it's Australia's Bigfoot. Others say it's a spirit as old as the land itself. And here's the kicker. These tales go back thousands of years, right through to modern times. Stick with us till the end, because what you're about to hear will make you question whether the Yowie is just myth or something much more real. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and later share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps these mysteries alive. Australia's a wild place. It's home to creatures that sound impossible. Egg-laying mammals, birds that can disembowel a man, snakes that kill within minutes, but among all the crocodiles, spiders and sharks. There's a story far stranger, the Yowie. Described as a towering figure, anywhere between 7 and 12 feet tall, covered in thick, dark hair with eyes that glow in the moonlight. Aboriginal lore speaks of the Yowie as the hairy man, a being both feared and respected. In Dreamtime stories, he was a protector of sacred places and a punisher of those who broke the law. When Europeans arrived, they thought it was just superstition. But by the mid-1800s, newspapers were printing letters from settlers who'd seen giant ape-like beings watching them from the tree line. Prospectors abandoned goldfields, farmers locked up their animals at night. And here's the strange part. The stories never stopped. From ancient rock art to modern thermal footage, the trail of evidence is long, messy, and hard to ignore. If it's all imagination, why does the Yowie refuse to disappear? For Aboriginal Australians, the Yowie wasn't myth. It was part of daily life. Elders from Queensland to New South Wales spoke of beings called Dulaga, Quinkin, and Jima. Each name described a slightly different creature, but all carried the same warning. Stay out of certain forests, because that's Yowie country. In Dreamtime stories, the Yowie was described as massive, with footprints so large they covered a child's entire torso. He was said to watch from the shadows, his eyes glowing red, his breath foul, carrying the stench of death. Parents told children, "Don't wander too far, the hairy man will take you." These weren't just scare tactics. Cave paintings and petroglyphs dating back thousands of years show tall humanoid figures beside hunters and animals. Some of the carvings are eerily similar to modern witness sketches: broad shoulders, long arms, a domed head. One elder, quoted in anthropologist Robert Holden's research, said, "We've always known they're here. You don't go into their places. That's how you survive." For Indigenous people, the Yowie wasn't folklore, it was fact. And ignoring it meant disrespecting the land itself. By the 1800s, Europeans were pushing deeper into Australia's wilderness. And that's when the Yowie started showing up in colonial records. In 1842, the Sydney Herald published a letter describing a wild man of the woods near Bathurst. Locals reported sheep going missing, fences smashed apart, and footprints in the mud unlike any humans. In 1876, prospectors near Mount Kembla told of a creature that followed them for hours, snapping branches and growling from the tree line. They described it as gorilla-like, towering above 6 feet, with shaggy hair and arms that hung past its knees. And then there was surveyor Henry James McCool, who in 1882 swore he was chased for nearly a mile by a hairy man-beast. His account was ridiculed at first, until other settlers came forward with near-identical stories. These encounters shook communities. And remember, at that time, Australia was barely mapped. Vast mountain ranges and forests stretched for hundreds of kilometers with no roads, no settlements. If ever there was a place for a creature to remain hidden, this was it. The 20th and 21st centuries brought no shortage of encounters. If anything, they made the Yowie even harder to dismiss. In 1936, soldiers training in the Blue Mountains reported something watching their camp at night. They saw glowing eyes moving between the trees and heard heavy, deliberate breathing echoing across the ridge. When they fired shots into the dark, the presence vanished. Prospector Charles Harper, working in the 1970s, claimed he was shadowed for days by something massive. Branches snapped, stones were hurled, and he felt an oppressive sense of being watched. In 2000, filmmaker Steve Piper captured footage of a dark, hulking figure moving through bushland in Queensland. The shaky clip, now known as the Piper footage, has divided researchers for decades. And in 2019, thermal cameras picked up a massive upright heat signature during a Yowie expedition, too large to be human, moving silently through the forest. Then there's Dean Harrison, one of Australia's most dedicated Yowie investigators. He claims he was attacked in the Gold Coast hinterland, shoved to the ground, scratched, and left bruised by something he insists was no man. His story has been backed up by photographs of his injuries. Ordinary campers and hikers report similar things: tents shaken violently, guttural growls echoing in the night, rocks being thrown at incredible force. And almost every witness describes the same smell, a sickly, sweet stench like rotting flesh and burnt hair. One camper from Kilcoy described it perfectly. It wasn't just the smell, it was the silence. The bush went dead quiet, like everything else knew it was there. So what is the Yowie? Explanations vary. Skeptics argue it's misidentification, kangaroos seen in poor light, wallabies startled into standing tall, or even people in costumes. Others blame pareidolia, where the brain fills in shapes it expects to see, but believers point to evidence. Footprints up to 40 centimeters long, pressed deep into the ground, suggesting immense weight. Consistent eyewitness reports spanning centuries, cultures, and regions. And the fact that so many describe not just what they saw, but what they felt. Some scientists suggest it could be a relic of the megafauna, ancient species that once roamed Australia. Others raise the possibility of a cousin to Gigantopithecus, the giant ape that lived in Asia millions of years ago. Could a population have survived in isolation here? Then there's the spiritual angle. Aboriginal stories often portray the Yowie as more than flesh and blood, a guardian spirit tied to the land, punishing intruders. For those who've encountered it, the experience feels less like spotting an animal and more like being singled out by something otherworldly. And perhaps that's why the Yowie endures. It sits at the crossroads of science and spirit, myth and reality. Beyond stories, there are traces. Plaster casts of footprints are kept by researchers. Sound recordings capture deep howls, unlike any known animal in Australia. Trees snap 2 meters above the ground. Stones thrown with force no human could manage. Kilcoy, Queensland, has even turned the Yowie into a local symbol. There's a statue in the town square. Cafes sell Yowie burgers, and locals proudly call it the Yowie capital. It's half tourism, half genuine belief. Ask around, and you'll hear more than one person quietly say, "Don't laugh, they're out there." The persistence of the legend, from sacred stories to modern evidence, shows something deeper. Whether the Yowie is a flesh and blood creature, a spiritual guardian, or a psychological phenomenon, it's left a mark on Australia's identity. And the sheer weight of consistent stories suggests there's more here than just tall tales. So what do we make of it all? On one side, centuries of consistent witness reports, physical traces, and researchers willing to risk ridicule. On the other, the absence of DNA, bones, or a body. But Australia is vast and unforgiving. The bush swallows secrets, animals die, decompose, and vanish quickly. The lack of proof isn't proof of absence. For Aboriginal Australians, the Yowie has always been here. For settlers, it became a symbol of the unknown wilderness. And for us today, it's a reminder that the world is still wilder and stranger than we like to admit. Whether you believe the Yowie is a lost species, a spirit, or simply a story, one thing's clear: something is out there, something powerful enough to inspire fear, respect, and curiosity for thousands of years. If this dive into the legend of the Yowie made you stop and think, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your mates who love a good mystery. Most importantly, drop a comment below. Do you reckon the Yowie's real? Have you, or someone you know, ever had a strange run-in in the bush? Your stories and theories aren't just comments. They're part of keeping these investigations alive. Because sometimes, the most important stories are the ones people try hardest to dismiss, and the truth about the Yowie, it might just be closer than we think.